Today, I want to just talk about qualitative research methodology and how to apply qualitative research methodology, why we are engaging in qualitative research methodology. After I present, you can ask questions. Any person can forward questions so that we can discuss more. As you all know, we have three types of research. We have quantitative research. Some of you are conducting quantitative research, as you know. We have qualitative research, and we have mixed research that includes qualitative and quantitative research types. In this short course, we are going to deal with qualitative research and why we are engaging with qualitative research in the time where we are conducting research, the current time, I mean. First of all, I want to take you back to the epistemological shifts so that we can understand the necessity of qualitative research, and so that we can connect also the research to the existing perspectives and theories. As we know, across the time in the academic, in the research landscape, there is a shift from modernism to postmodernism, or from structuralism to post-structuralism. I think you have heard about these two epistemological positions: modernism, postmodernism, structuralism, and post-structuralism. So this is a shift in thinking. This is a shift in epistemology. This is a shift in how we know what we want to know. So this shift is understanding these shifts in epistemological positions is very important to understand the qualitative methodological approach. That is why I want to speak about epistemological shifts before I come to talking about qualitative research. When we talk about the shift from modernist approach, or the shift from modernist to postmodernist, or from structuralist to post-structuralist, we have to understand that it is all about how we perceive reality and knowledge. It is the change in the way people perceive reality, the way people perceive knowledge itself, the way people perceive truth itself. So in the era of postmodernist epistemology, knowledge and truth and what we say reality are understood as certain, as something which is certain, as something that is a result of structure, and as something which is objective. Knowledge is considered to be objective, which is free from bias. So our research or outputs, our research results are considered to be free from our bias, free from our perceptions, free from our truths. So knowledge is considered to be independent person who is conducting the research. Knowledge is considered to be objective and free from any feeling and perception or bias of the researcher. That is how knowledge is considered to be understood during the modernist era. the modernist epistemology we mean. In contrast to that one, in the postmodernist epistemology, postmodernist epistemologists are contesting to the modernist epistemology, and the postmodernist thinkers start to think about that knowledge is relative and it is a plural. There is no universal knowledge, there is no universal reality, there is no universal truth. Truth is relative, knowledge is relative, reality is relative. So they start to think that knowledge is a socially constructed phenomenon. So there is no fixed knowledge, there is no fixed truth, there is no fixed reality. Reality is based in context. Reality is based in the way knowledge is constructed. So knowledge is the process of interaction. Knowledge is the process of interaction within a context. So there are multiple knowledge because contexts are different, cultures are different, the way people think are different. So as much as the difference exists among human culture in the context, knowledge is also different. That is the way knowledge is being understood under the postmodernist construction. So in the postmodernism, knowledge is considered to be social construction. That means any knowledge is constructed by the researcher. So it is not a research result. A research output is not free from researcher's feeling, researcher's opinion. So there is a way that the researcher influences research output. So this is opposite to what we say the objective reality or objective knowledge. So knowledge is constructed. It is socially constructed. It is the result of the interpretation and the result of the construction by the researcher. So there is no knowledge which is absolutely objective. Any knowledge is acceptable, true, and real within a context. So out of any context, out of its context, anything is not true. That is the way the postmodernist thinkers are understanding. Then similar to that one, the structuralists as also say, the structuralists and the modernists are parallel to each other. They support each other and they exist in, with the same thinking in the perspective. So for structuralists, knowledge is a result of structure, deep structure, and it is a universal and it is objective, okay? Similar to the modernists, the structuralist thinkers say knowledge is free from researchers' bias in the feeling and researchers' personal understanding. So any knowledge is universal, knowledge and the realities are free from researchers' bias, they are objective, they say. So knowledge is the result of perfect scientific process. And it is the result of the opposition in the relation, which is always fixed, they say. So knowledge is universal and it is a fixed. The knowledge about something cannot be changed from context to context. So any knowledge which is true in some context is in the similar way true in another context because it is universal. That is the way the structuralists understand knowledge and research outputs as well. So the post-structuralist thinkers oppose to this, the structural thinkers. They say knowledge is always relative. It is based on context. It is socially constructed. It is not fixed. It is not universal. So it is based on the context and it is based on the interpretation of the researcher. So the researcher has an influence on the research output. So any research output, any research result is not free from researchers' interpretation, feeling, and understanding, they say. So any knowledge is determined by the context in which it has been interpreted, in which it has been it has been done. So these are the perspectives, the shift in perspective. So following these perspectives, there was a change in research methodology. So I hope you know what positivism is. In the old time, when thinking in the research methodologies started, positivism was a popular research approach. So it says any knowledge should be quantifiable, any knowledge should be objective, and if it is not objective, it cannot be research output. If it cannot be quantifiable, it cannot be research output. That is the way the positivists were interpreting research. So the positivists were informed by the modernist and structuralist perspective. The positivists were mainly informed by the modernist and structuralist epistemological positions. Okay, so informed by these positions, the positivist objective, it is measurable, it is independent of human perception, it is derived from empirical observation, experimentation, and statistical analysis. That is the positivist position, the positivist researcher's position. So this position was from the structuralist and modernist epistemological position. Contrasting to this one, with the coming of the post-structuralism and postmodernism, another research position was established, what we call interpretivism. Okay, so in interpretivism, as contrast to the positivism, knowledge, research output, reality is considered to be contextual, meaning based on understanding of the researcher. Reality is socially constructed, shaped by culture, by context, by language, and by individual experience. And knowledge is interpretative, requiring an immersion in the participant's perspective. And the researcher should seek deep understanding, not general laws and not of an quantifiable result. So these are opposing to the positivists, and this perspective, the interpretivism perspective, is informed by the post-structuralist and the postmodernist epistemological positions. So now here, what is more advertised is that context is more important, and knowledge in the research output is not free from researcher's perception. So there is no free knowledge, there is no free research result that is free from the bias by the researcher. So always knowledge is a social constructed. Always knowledge is based in the context. So following from that, the importance of qualitative research arises. So people's perception, people's perspective, people's ideas became important, because in the post-structuralist, in the postmodernist epistemological position, interaction is very important. Researchers' interaction with the people, researchers' interaction with the context, researchers' interaction with the environment became more important than the quantifiable knowledge. So quantity is still important, but quality became important, because perspective of people cannot be quantified. People's ideas, people's perceptions, people's perspectives cannot always be quantified. So when we cannot quantify people's perceptions, people's meanings, people's perspectives, then qualitative research is very important. So the importance of qualitative research has been emerged from the post-structuralist and the postmodernist epistemological position. Okay, so in addition to the quantifiable data, the qualitative data that involves people's perceptions, views, meaning making, language, narratives became important. Such kind of data is generated through qualitative research. That is the foundation for qualitative research. Okay. So because of that, the qualitative research has been established as one of the trends in research. Okay, so qualitative of inquiry, it is not quantitative, qualitative. So the qualitative means people's narrative, people's perspectives, people's opinion, what we observe, actions, people's behaviors, actions that cannot be quantified, that cannot be counted, are considered to be important. Therefore, the qualitative research method will help us to generate such kind of data. So in qualitative research, we explore phenomena in their natural setting. That means natural setting without constructing data, species, or like that. So when people live their own life, when people are engaged in their own actions, when people are interacting with each other in the natural way, their everyday life, tell about their everyday life. This is the phenomenon, the activities in the natural context. So in qualitative research, we collect such kind of data. So qualitative research generates data that is very deep about human life, about people's everyday life, about people's everyday perspective, everyday expressions. And we interpret. That is the process of qualitative research. Okay? Why we need qualitative research? Therefore, we need qualitative research because people's perspective, narratives, and expressions can be generated through qualitative research. And these kinds of data are very important to identify, to explore, to investigate people's in-depth thinking, people's in-depth meaning, people's in-depth perspectives. That is why qualitative research is very important. Therefore, it is based on non-numerical data, and it involves interviewing people, observing people's action, discussing with the people, with a group of people, and documenting people's archived phenomenon. Okay, so these are, we will see these methods later on. So these are the ways or methods that we involve in qualitative research. So qualitative research will help us to understand how and why people behave, think, or feel in a certain way. Okay, why people do this, why people behave in this way, why people speak like this, why people live in this way, why people value this, why people challenge this, why people do not accept this, and how they do it, and why they do it. These kinds of questions are answered through qualitative research. So when we want to document people's views about something, people's meanings of something, people's everyday practices, people's everyday life actions. We are involved in qualitative research. So that is why qualitative research became important in all fields of study: natural science, in social science, in health fields, in economics, in all fields of study. Qualitative research became important. So it helps us to explore complex phenomena. It helps us to understand human experiences, perspectives, behaviors, meanings in a natural context. Okay? And it helps us to answer questions such as why, how, rather than how many, how much. These are very not deep. So to get deep meanings of people, deep perspective, deep lives of people, we ask these questions and we get answers through the qualitative methods of data collection. So it is very important for investigating people's life in their natural environment to understand how context shapes behavior in the meanings. Always we say that we stated that in the post-structuralist and the post-modernist epistemological position, we understand that context shapes knowledge. Context shapes reality. So through qualitative research also, we can generate people's understanding, perspectives, and the meanings. And that meaning, that understanding, that perception is shaped by context. It could be cultural context, it could be political context, it could be historical context, it could be any other context. That meaning is ways of knowledge making, ways of life. So such contexts are important, and these important contexts are all investigated through qualitative methods. Of qualitative research always moves from qualitative data to theoretical or generalized knowledge, okay, as opposite to the quantitative research. Quantitative research moves, it is quantitative research is a didactic, an inductive process, and this one is didactic, moving from specific to general, but the quantitative research moves from theory to specific. That means in the quantitative research, we start from making hypothesis that is generated from any theoretical position. Then we want to prove the hypothesis through collecting data, and then we prove the hypothesis. That will be our finding. In qualitative research, we collect data, then we organize data, we thematize data, then we develop that theme into concept, and the concept into theory. So it is a process of theory making. The quantitative research is a process of theory interpretation, but the qualitative one is the process of theory making, starting from specific and moving into the general one. Okay, so any theory we talk about is started by data, and that data is collected and conceptualized and developed into perspective or theory. So it moves from specific to general, which is very important. So so far, importance of qualitative research. Okay, in qualitative, why qualitative research? It is because of the epistemological changes and the importance of qualitative research. It helps us to understand people's everyday life in a given context. Okay, so So then now I want to pass on to approach in qualitative research. These are very important. Approach in qualitative research. These approaches are useful because it is on the basis of this approach that we determine our methods of data collection. It is on the basis of this approach that we determine our research design in qualitative research. So we have different approaches, but the major ones are the following. The first one is interpretivist approach. So this is the first methodological position or approach moved from the positivist position and dealing with people's interpretation. Here, when we want to document how people make meaning of something, how people interpret something, so we focus on interpretivism. So, for example, we may study cultural symbolisms. We may study how people understand their rituals, their symbols, how people make meaning of things in their environment, how people make meaning of their everyday life. So when we focus on this, we are focusing on interpretation, how people interpret their lives, their actions, their words, their movements, and their lives in a given context. Okay, if our research is focusing on that, we choose interpretivism. Okay, so we focus on interpreting phenomenon, human phenomenon. We focus on interpreting how human beings interact with their environment, how human beings interact with each other, how human beings make meaning of their lives, their culture, their social phenomenon. So that approach is called interpretivism. Okay, interpretivism is one approach in qualitative research, which is very, very important approach in qualitative research. The other one is the historical approach, which is about time. Okay, in historical approach, we study the past and connect it to the present. So when we want to study the past phenomenon, the past life of human being, the past action of human being, the past action process in human life, then we go back and interview about what happened in the past. We go back and engage in focus group discussion about something in the past, and we want to connect that to the present. Then our approach will be historical approach. Okay, so if we, for example, economic situation for a country, for a community, how poverty was in the past and how poverty is today, then we want to study changes in the continuities in poverty status of a family. Then we have to go back and study what was done in the past, what happened in the past, what it was look like in the past. Then we connect the past to the present and understand it, or we connect the present to the past and understand it. And that process is called historical approach. Okay, this is very important as well. And the third one is the narrative approach. Okay, narrative is a story about a phenomenon. So when we want to engage on a narrative of an institution, story of an institution, story of a community, story of people, okay, then we engage in a narrative. So we want people to tell us in language about something, okay? When we want people to tell about their life in language, in a kind of story that has a beginning, as a middle, in the end, okay? So that kind of approach is what we say a narrative approach. Narrative approach is very, very important in social science. And these days also it is very important in health science. So when people express about the health situation through extended kind of narrative, that by extend 10 minutes or 5 minutes or like that. So they tell about, they start tell, then they tell continuously, they present different phenomenon, different events in a given storyline. And that is what we say a narrative approach. So narrative approach could be about a society, it could be about a family, it could be about an individual, it could be about an institution, it could be about an event, it could be about a process, okay? So people may narrate about a process, a given process, people may narrate about a given an institution, people may narrate about their culture, about their value system, about their everyday life. So different phenomenon about humankind can be expressed through narrative, and that approach is what we call the narrative approach, okay? So this is a very, very deep, but it involves a kind of complex phenomenon, because interpreting, understanding people's narrative may take time to analyze and to interpret and to make meaning of the narrative process. And another important approach in qualitative research is the interactionist approach. Interactionist approach, okay? The interactionist approach focuses on interactions in the communications among people, okay? When our research focuses about discourses or communications or interactions among people, among community members, among members in a given institution, and when it is about how people interact with each other, make meaning with each other, then that is what we say interactionist approach. So people often talk with each other, they exchange information at different events, they come together as a group, they be together as a families, as a friends, and they talk with each other, and they exchange information, and they communicate with each other. When we base our research investigation or our data collection on such kinds of interaction, we are doing an interactionist approach, okay? So this is also very, very important. And the next to the approach, what comes is the research design, the qualitative research design. I'll finish the designs, and then I'll give you opportunity for question and idea generation. So we have several designs in qualitative research. Some of the design in qualitative research are also designs in the quantitative research. When we come to the research design, there are designs that qualitative research shares with the quantitative research approach. And there are designs that are unique to qualitative research, and there are designs that are unique to quantitative research, okay? If we take descriptive design can be designed in qualitative research at the same time in quantitative research. So in descriptive design, we can involve quantifiable data and non-quantifiable data. So in descriptive designs, we involve descriptive design when we focus on answering questions such as what, where, when, and how, but not why question. So through the descriptive design, we cannot answer the why question, or our research questions cannot be the why question. So we focus on what is it, where it is, about place, when, time, how, the process. And we don't ask the reason question because it demands deep investigation. In descriptive research, we don't go for deep because descriptive research is important, descriptive design is important because it saves time. So without taking longer time, we can collect data and we can analyze and we can respond to questions, research questions, such as what, where, when, and how. Okay, so descriptive, most of the dissertations we advise, master's dissertation and some PhD dissertation even are descriptive research because students might not have time to go for another kinds of research design, and often they prefer descriptive research design. So in descriptive research design, we can involve qualitative and quantitative data also. The second one, which is also common for descriptive for qualitative and the quantitative research, is a cross-sectional research. I think most of you are familiar with cross-sectional research. Cross-sectional research is a design that helps us to collect data from different categories of society at the same time, at the same point in time. Okay, so it is a kind of, we collect data from different categories, different segments of a community or a society at the same time. For example, if we take different gender categories, male, female, or age categories, boys, children, adults, or economic categories, or geographical categories, from these categories, we collect data at the same time. That is why we say cross-sectional design, okay? So a cross-sectional design involves collecting data from different social categories at the same point in time, okay? That is what we say cross-sectional design. And opposite to this one is a longitudinal design. Longitudinal design is when we collect data from the same category at a different time, okay? For example, if we take use, for example, if we are collecting data from use, we may collect data from use, the same group at different time, okay? If we collect data today, we may collect another category of data or another cohort of data after 6 months, again after 6 months, okay? This is across time, okay? This is what we call longitudinal study. It is collecting data from the same group, the same social category at different time, okay? For example, most of the time, when we study how poverty passes across generation, how poverty passes from fathers to children, from children to their children, then we take a kind of children, then we study them when they are youth, we study them when they are young adult, we study them when they are old. Like this is studying the same group across different time, which is opposite to the cross-sectional study one. Okay, this is possible for for qualitative, at the same time for quantitative research. And the other one is ethnography. Ethnography is most of the time done with qualitative research. So ethnographers, most of ethnographers are qualitative researchers because ethnography involves immersion in a given culture. So when we want to study in a given society, then we stay in the society for extended period of time, probably a couple of months to a year and more. We may stay in the society, and we study the culture of the society, the way of life of the society. Then we get immersed in that culture, and we collect data from insiders' point of view, from insiders' perspective. That is very, very deep data. Okay, so because we be in the society, and we learn the culture, we learn the way of life, and we live like the society live, and then we understand society's perspectives, society's opinions, views, and the meaning is from insiders' perspective, from the IMIC perspective, okay? Being one of them and collecting the data. So here we may use participant observation, we may use in-depth interviews, we may use focus group discussions, and then we collect data from the insider's point of view. So ethnography involves staying in the community, dealing with gatekeepers, and getting permission from gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are community leaders, people who can allow you to stay in the community, people who can allow you to stay in a given organization, the people who can help you, who can facilitate the situations, the process in your ethnographic data collection. We call such people gatekeepers. So we have to enter into the society, we have to stay in the society with the people, and then we have to collect from their point of view. Okay, and the last approach is action research design. So action research designs by people who are by teachers, any person who is in the process of action or in the process of work can do action research to solve the problem. Okay, most of the time in the process of work we may encounter a given challenge, and we want to solve the challenge. So we have to collect data, analyze data, and we come with the finding, and then we apply the finding, and we solve the problem. So that is what we say action research. So action research can be done in quantitative and the qualitative ways. So action research is the research design through which people solve. They might not be researchers. They are practitioners. So being a practitioner, you may conduct research to solve a given organizational problem or community problem. Then using the result from the research, then you solve the problem, you apply. So the one who conducts the research and the one who applies the result are the same person. The same person conducts the research, senses the problem, conducts the research, and apply the research result. And such design is called as action research. So what we should understand is these designs are not independent of each other. Some of the designs go with each other or they support each other. For example, if we take cross-sectional can go with design can be cross-sectional descriptive research, or cross-sectional can work with action research. Cross-sectional research can work with ethnography, or descriptive research can work with action research. So only longitudinal and cross-sectional researches are not complementary, or they might not go with each other because they are contrasting with each other. So because one is events of a community at the same time, but the other one is collecting data from one segment at different time. Otherwise, the other designs are complementary to each other. So we may involve one with the other, okay? Or we may involve only one, or we may involve three of them together, depending on the depth and the breadth of our research topic. We may use these qualitative research designs with each other. So in general, qualitative research is informed by the epistemological positions. So the epistemological shifts, or what we call the paradigm shifts in understanding, in the way we express knowledge itself. So it is informed by that. It is founded on the need for people's opinion, perspective, and the narrative in the meanings, on the need for qualitative research in addition to the quantitative research, okay? So lastly, in our contemporary world, what is more important is the one that reconciles the contest between the quantitative and the qualitative. That is the mixed research approach. The mixed research approach says that reality is both quantifiable and non-quantifiable. There are quantifiable reality and there are non-quantifiable reality. So both are important. Sometimes we might count data, sometimes we may not count. So both are important. Therefore, we have to engage in a given topic, we have to engage both kinds of data, and that engagement is implemented through mixed research approach. The mixed research. This is more acceptable, and the mixed research is more demanded. And so the mixed research values both kinds of approach. It values quantitative approach and it values qualitative approach, because reality is sometimes quantifiable, reality is sometimes non-quantifiable, and both quantifiable and non-quantifiable reality are important in our understanding of phenomenon, in our understanding, comprehensive understanding of reality itself, in our comprehensive construction of knowledge. Both quantitative and qualitative are important, and the mixed research that includes involves both qualitative and quantitative research has been advertised in today projects. Both qualitative and quantitative research are advertised now. So in a given big research, if you are considering only quantitative, that is not acceptable. If you are considering only qualitative, that is not also acceptable, because you cannot manage a huge data through. So both are important, it says, and in terms of the validity of the data, qualitative is more valid because it is human expression, but the quantitative one can be biased, it can be modified easily, and it can be, because it is a number is very susceptible for scamming or people's influences and the people's biases. So the mixed approach is very useful to triangulate between triangulate knowledge from quantitative with qualitative, from qualitative with the quantitative one. So this is for today.